And I will be detail line by line how we came up with this rate development. And we do this in an effort to be as transparent as possible. We have sent out several specialized residential surveys in an effort to collect network averages so that this is an appropriate logic to come up with fair rates for all of the specialized residential providers in the network. So starting up at, well, for starters, I apologize, we are going to be looking at the specialized residential base rate logic. What that means is this is the minimum rate that one would receive, but this is for a 6-bed home. So when we developed this logic, we were looking at starting somewhere. So we were looking at 6-bed licensed homes and then built it from there. Now this logic is customizable so that if there's a license for smaller settings, for instance, this can be adjusted, but primarily this is going to be the rate that one would receive in a licensed setting. So starting up at the top here, let me know if you can see my mouse. Yep, looks good. We've got several different positions that one might have. First off is the direct care worker, direct care employee, and then we also took into consideration the fact that due to a staffing shortage, assistant managers and managers or supervisors, a lot of their time is also involved with direct care of individuals. So we took those hours into consideration as well, being aware of this. So this amount right here, $11.43, this is a network average of the salary that, or an hourly wage that a direct care employee would have. And this does include direct care wage, as well as the 25-cent direct care wage increase that was recently approved by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. And this went into effect April 1st of 2019. So that is also included in this logic. We also have $14 included in here for an assistant manager position and $16 for a manager position, which we've accounted for farther down the logic. So as I had mentioned before, this logic was built around a 6-bed licensed home. If you don't mind, I'm just going to scroll down to this 4.64 here, and then that number will flow up to the top and it'll be far easier to work our way down. So this 4.64 represents the average shifts per workday in a 6-bed licensed home. Now, please take into consideration the fact that this is for individuals with what one might call lower acuity, since this is the base rate. And then depending on the level of need that the individual would have, they may receive the moderate acuity or high acuity rate. And we do also have an enhanced staffing rate as well that I will present closer to the end of this webinar. So this 4.64 represents a staffing ratio of 1.5 to 1 on weekdays and 2 to 1 on weekends. And then that amount flows up here to direct care hours per day. So for 4.64 shifts per day, that is about 31.14 hours of direct care from direct care professionals. Then we also took into consideration assistant manager hours and manager hours, and those variables will be going up based on the level of need of the individual. We also added in here a 34% variable for benefits, payroll tax, workers' comp, unemployment, and FICA. This is a network average that our fantastic CFO had added to this logic. And then we do also have a 12.5% variable for overhead and admin. So this is non-direct care. Moving down the list, we've got here work days per year at 359. The reason for that is because 359 days are paid at a regular wage. However, holidays, 6 holidays per year, are normally paid at time and a half. So we did take that cost into consideration. We've also, based on a survey that was distributed to the network, we had determined that about 15% is the overtime percentage across the network. We've also included a variable here for staff in service and training. We also are aware of the staff annual turnover. So due to a staffing shortage, we do understand that turnover is quite high within the network. So we included a variable for that as well in an effort to be as fair and transparent as possible. So working our way down the list, we've got paid time off, about 10 days per year. We understand that's another cost associated with caring for these individuals in these settings. And we have a variable here of $12,000 per year for transportation. That's another cost that we've included. So for the base rate, after taking all of those variables into consideration, we made 2 additional adjustments here at the very end, one for leave of absence and one for vacancy. So again, leave of absence rate, while it's at 3% for the base rate, this variable will increase once we start getting into the moderate acuity and high acuity, because we do understand that leave of absence tends to increase for individuals that have higher needs. So after all of that presented to you, all of those variables taken into consideration, this brings us to a per diem rate after leave of absence and vacancy of $132.40. So the moderate and high acuity should go fairly quickly since almost everything is the same, except adjustments have been made to account for higher needs of individuals. So these darker orange boxes are the variables that had been changed. As you can see, direct care hours per day had been increased, as well as assistant manager and manager hours had also been increased. The benefits and overtime and admin all remained the same. Overtime, staff training, and transportation all remain the same. However, you can see here, row 37, that we included an additional variable for medical supplies and equipment at $500. So we do understand that individuals with higher needs sometimes will require more medical equipment, like for instance, a gurney or some other medical supplies. And then as you can see here, we'd increase leave of absence from 3% to 5% for an individual with moderate acuity. This brings us to a per diem rate of $150.20. Now, as long as I'm not going too fast, please, we will ask that you leave your questions until the very end. So please let me know in the chat if I'm going a little too fast. But if not, I will be moving over to the high acuity rate. Once again, all variables remain the same except for direct care hours were again increased for the direct care from direct care professionals and then from the assistant manager and manager. Now, as you can see, more variables have been increased due to the additional need of the individual. So over time, we had increased from 15% to 20%. We also understand that staff turnover tends to increase in homes where there are individuals adjustment had been increased from 3% to 5% to 15% for an individual with high acuity. Moving on, what I will present is the enhanced staffing. So this would be an individual that requires one-to-one staffing. From what I understand, there's a process that must be followed for somebody to qualify for enhanced staffing. But the way this will work is we were looking at one additional shift per day, included federal and state unemployment, Social Security, and Medicaid at 13.65%. So what that would give us is, in addition to the base rate, the rate would increase by $103.92. Again, there is a strict process involved with qualifying for enhanced staffing, but that would be what the rate would look like in addition to the base rate. So what we have here is simply a summary of what the rates would look like for a licensed 6-bed home. The base rate again being $132.40, moderate acuity rate being $150.20, and high acuity rate being $193.85, with a possible enhanced staffing addition of $103.92. Do you think now is a good opportunity to ask questions?
Yes, you guys can go ahead and unmute yourselves if you like. If you're calling on the phone, it's *6 if you'd like to unmute, or you can type any questions that you have in the chat area. That might have been so good, Victoria, that there's no questions.
All right then. Well, if there are no questions, for those that did not get an opportunity to join this meeting, I will be sending the rate methodology for the low acuity or base rate, the moderate acuity, and high acuity out to our providers via the YMLP. So please keep an eye out for that. And should you have any questions, you are more than welcome to reach out to me via my Oakland CHN email, which, is my audio on? We're good. So should you have any questions, please feel free to email at any time, and Trisha will add my email to the bottom of the chat. Thank you so much.
Right, we have a question.
We do have a question.
Yeah, Steve.
When will providers receive the acuity levels for each person supported? That's a fantastic question. So the acuity levels of every individual will be dependent on the DLA-20. Now, this is an assessment tool that I believe all providers are required to use, and we'll be using this assessment tool to determine the acuity levels of every individual. So this is actually, just interestingly, if you don't mind me including this, what we had done when we had developed these rates is we went ahead and took our DLA-20, a list of every individual and their current, where they fall based on the DLA-20, and then took our rates, compared it to their current rates to see, is this actually something that we can afford? And interestingly enough, we actually found that the cost of providing current rates and these rates almost lined up exactly, with about a 0.2% difference, which is remarkable because this is something that we can actually support. And we're finding that a lot of the providers are very excited about these rates because they are higher than they've received historically. And with our effort to be as transparent as possible, I think we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from our providers because we've been able to present exactly how we came up with these rates, and they seem to be pretty excited about it. So at this time, I don't think you will know exactly at what acuity tier the individual will fall, but it will be based on the DLA-20, and all of these rates will be rolled out on the 1st of October of 2019. So I suppose you will be able to find out at that time.
We can also try to get that out to them earlier. Your volume, so that way in case they respond back.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any other questions?
One more. If you have a long-term vacancy, will the home be permanently downsized for the rate? In other words, does not look like a home will ever have 6 persons and have 4 persons.
So I'm actually going to go ahead and answer that question. The home is funded based on the number of licenses you have. So if your home is licensed for 5 individuals, then that's what the funding would be based on. So if you were to consider a long-term vacancy, you might consider having the number of licenses in the home adjusted.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Any way to get the acuity level rates before October?
I think we can try to do that and try to make sure that you get them before October. It's just a matter of putting together those lists. We can probably try to get those out sometime in September at the latest. I think for the most part we have all that information, so I don't want to overpromise, but I would say we should be able to get that out to people sometime in September so that you all can plan on the rates you'll have.
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah. So providers change the license bed from 6 to 4. This would be honored in the rate process.
Correct. You would be funded based on the number of licenses that your home is licensed for. One of OCHN's values is smaller settings, so we would always encourage you to reduce the number of licenses you have. And if you were going down to 4, the question would be then, does it have to be licensed at all? Because 4 individuals or less living together don't need to be licensed.
Steve has all the good questions.
I know, these are fantastic.
And I keep repeating them for the video as well. Will we be discussing this further or highlighting any of it at the provider meeting in July?
Is there a provider meeting in July?
There is.
Then sure.
All right. And are sending out the spreadsheet used in the webinar or the OCHN website. Steve, if you scroll up, we did provide and I'm doing it on my, we did provide a PDF of the rate logic so that you would be able to have that. And we'll also make sure that we email that out as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's okay. I will re-upload it. Yeah, keep both. And then you should be able to click on these 3 dots. Okay, sorry, Emily, thank you for that. Steve, if you're able to take the 3 dots and you'll be able to download that PDF, or you can open it online, which it will show you everything that Victoria had gone over. All right, you can't see it. That's okay, Steve. I will email it to you directly then. You're welcome. All right, and I think if that's it, then I will make sure, we only had a couple people on this webinar, so I will make sure that I email it out to both of you. And then we have Victoria's email in there as well, and I'll CC her on that email in case you guys have any additional questions. But I think that's it. We'll wrap this up, and then I'll be letting everybody know at our next provider meeting in July where all the recorded and archived webinars are held for training. So, all right. Well, thank you guys very much for joining us. Have a good day.